Today, the House of Commons is back for what's supposed to be its final stretch of business for the year. Instead, the House remains deadlocked for a 6-week by a privilege debate. So are any of the parties willing to flinch yet? And what could the consequences be if they don't? Karina Gould is the government House leader, and she joins me now. Hey, Minister.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks for coming on. So Parliament hasn't done much of anything for weeks. The House has been paralyzed, as I said there, for 6 weeks. How long are you willing to let this drag on?
Well, look, as I mentioned today, the government has complied with the House requirement to submit documents. We've provided almost 29,000 pages worth of documents to the House of Commons. We've just done so in a way that respects the rights of Canadians, that respects police independence, and respects the separation of powers. So, at this point in time, I think it's up to the Conservative Party of Canada to stop obstructing their own obstruction. They keep, bringing forward more obstruction measures, and to get this matter to committee so that we can move on with other business. The government has been ready to do so since day one, but now all of those documents are in. They're just in a way that respects Canadians.
They're in, but they're also redacted, right, Minister? I know the clerk of the committee that's handling all this has written to the government departments to say what's been submitted is not what MPs asked for. There are a number of blacked out sections. They are not getting the full document portfolio that they asked for in all of its transparency. Why haven't you done that?
Let's just be clear though, JP, because MPs are not actually seeing these documents. What is so unprecedented about what the Conservative Party of Canada has asked for is that these documents are not even going to MPs. MPs will never look at them. They're going straight to the RCMP, which has never happened before. And that's why the Speaker ruled that because this is so unprecedented, it should go to a House of Commons committee to understand what this means. And that's why we've heard from, former Deputy RCMP Commissioner, former Law Clerk of the House of Commons, former officials in the Office of the Law Clerk, that this is unprecedented. It is of grave concern. It's an abuse of the extraordinary powers that parliamentarians have. And so as a government, we said we will respond and comply with the order so long as it respects the rights of Canadians. And that is exactly what we have done. I think it's time for Conservative Party of Canada members of Parliament to stop playing these dangerous games with the rights of Canadians and to, move on so that we can get to the important business of governing for Canada.
But you could also move on too, couldn't you, Minister? You have the power to shut this down this afternoon. You could just produce the documents they've been asking for weeks and all this would go away. That's what they've said.
We have produced the documents, but we're not going to do it in a way that attacks the rights of Canadians, and we're not going to do it in a way that compromises police independence. I think Canadians expect that everybody in this country should have access to due process, and what the Conservative Party of Canada is trying to do is to backdoor around due process, to backdoor around the rights of Canadians, and to backdoor around police independence. They are trying to direct police as to what and whom to investigate, and that is an extraordinarily dangerous precedent to set. And as a government, it is our job to stand up for the rights of Canadians, and that's exactly what we are doing. So these documents have been produced. They have been submitted to the House of Commons, who can, do what they want with them, but in a way that respects the rights of Canadians, respects due process, respects police independence, and respects the separation of powers in our country.
So you outlined some priorities at the start of this parliamentary sitting. What impact is this logjam having on your legislative agenda? You've essentially been able to do nothing, right, since September.
Well, we passed important legislation to devolve emergency management powers to Jasper National Park. In the last week before we returned, before we went back to our communities for Remembrance Day, we passed legislation through the House to grant self-governing powers to the Haida Gwaii Nation, and pharmacare has passed through the Senate. So, there's still work that is going on in the House of Commons. It's not, as active a legislative agenda, but we are in, a more traditional minority parliament. Of course, there's other pieces of legislation that we would like to be able to advance, particularly when it comes to online harms and protecting our kids online, when it comes to making sure that there's fairness in Canadian citizenship, and of course when it comes to justice for victims of sexual assault in the military. These are all things that we would really like to be able to advance, but that the Conservatives are filibustering and blocking in the House of Commons. Today we put forward our supply bill, which is the bill that outlines spending for this period, and that has important things like support for Ukraine and support for our military, support for dental care programs, and these are all things that Conservatives are against and they are blocking. But I think for everyday Canadians, we want to make sure that we are providing that military aid to Ukraine at such an important and pivotal time for them. And when it comes to things here at home, like dental care, we've seen over 1 million Canadians be able to access the dentist, and we want that number to grow even more.
But you are telling me that not releasing the documents is more of a priority for you than actually acting on some of these priorities you just laid out, because you could take action on these.
We have released the documents.
Unredacted documents.
Up to 29,000 pages of documents.
Yeah, but the documents are useless if they don't have what the Conservatives want in them, right? That's the whole point.
The Conservatives aren't even going to see these documents at any point because they didn't ask for the documents for themselves. They asked for these documents to go to the RCMP. That is not something that they should be doing, and I would hope that if they were in government, they would be acting the same way, because what they are doing is wrong. It is absolutely wrong what they are asking for. It is egregious abuse of power, and they need to stop playing these silly partisan games for their own partisan vendettas and allow this chamber to get to work and to support Canadians. There is only one party that is blocking things right now, and that is the Conservative Party of Canada. As a government, we have an obligation to protect the rights of Canadians. That's what people expect that we would do. Citizens in this country expect members of Parliament to protect their rights, not to flout their rights, and Conservative members of Parliament would rather play these petty games than do the good work that Canadians sent us here to do.
So you really will hold out. You will not relent on this. You are waiting for the Conservatives to act. This is how we bring this to an end. I mean, Canadians sitting at home are thinking they haven't done much of anything for 6 weeks and the government is letting this go on. I mean, is this what's going to play out over the next several weeks into Christmas? You are not budging. It's up to the Conservatives to fold. Is that what you're saying?
Conservatives right now are obstructing their own obstruction. The Speaker was very clear when he first made the ruling that because this is so unprecedented, it should be sent to the Procedure and House Affairs Committee for further study. Expert after expert has said this is an egregious abuse of power. The Conservatives don't want this to go to committee because they know they are wrong, they know they have crossed the line, and they know that this is simply undemocratic and inappropriate and an abuse of power. We as a government are obliged to protect the rights of Canadians. We've provided nearly 29,000 pages of documents that have been redacted, but for privacy reasons, for charter rights protections reasons. This is, we are not saying we're not providing these documents. That's not the case. Up to 29,000 pages of documents have been provided. The Conservatives need to stop playing these games. They need to stop obstructing their own obstruction, because they're the ones that are filibustering their own motion in the chamber right now. They're the only ones putting up speakers. They're the only ones that are trying to waste time. And the rest of us want to be able to continue to advance important work for Canadians.
One solution is prorogation. You could kind of clear the decks and start fresh. Is that something that you're considering given this logjam?
No, we are not considering prorogation.
Can I ask you about Employment Minister Randy Boissonnault? As you might have seen, there has been some controversy over him claiming he was Indigenous on some business forms as it relates to doing business with the federal government. Now we've just learned from some reporting in the National Post that his firm also shared an address with someone who was caught up in a cocaine bust. Do you believe that Mr. Boissonnault should stay in cabinet at this point?
Look, Minister Boissonnault has addressed these allegations, and he has stated that they are false and incorrect, and that is something that he stands by.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you so much, Government House Leader Karina Gould. Appreciate you coming on, Minister.
Thank you so much for your time.